Yes.
You didn't know that individual's name, right?
No.
Okay. Is there any way that you can describe him?
No.
Did you hear him say anything?
I thought he said something like I was in the military.
And did he say anything else? Did he say anything about, I was in the military and I'll shoot you?
That recalls, I think I made that statement.
That sounds familiar to you?
Yeah.
I'm going to show you a copy of prior testimony, page 186, line 17, 18, 19. Take a look right here. Tell me once you have an opportunity to read it to yourself.
What, from 14 to 19?
Yeah, roughly 14.
That's a question.
Yeah, just let me take it back now. Do you remember making this statement previously?
Yes.
Okay. And does that seem like a familiar phrase to you, like something you may have heard earlier?
Yes.
Okay. And what exactly was it that you recall being said and what you heard? Do you remember?
You want to know the statement?
Yeah.
I was in the military, and I'll shoot you or something like that.
And that's what you recall hearing that night,
I believe so.
and what you previously testified to here in court.
Yes.
And that was made by the individual. That statement was made by the individual who came out of the backyard.
I believe so.
Where did that individual end up on our map? Can you tell us where you saw him proceed to on the street?
It just seemed like he was in the grassy area right in front of the houses by the street.
Which houses? I'm sorry, there's a lot out there.
He was in this general area.
Okay. And Brian Leverett remained there by the end of the driveway,
Yeah.
roughly?
Yeah.
After the statement was made, what did you see happen?
I saw some gunshots.
Who was firing? The military man or Brian Leverett?
The guy that came from the backyard.
Did you ever see the shotgun discharge?
I don't believe so.
And did you ever hear the shotgun discharge?
No.
How many gunshots did you hear? A lot?
I previously testified to maybe like a dozen, 10, 12.
And today you think that's probably still an accurate number?
Maybe.
And with all those, I just want to make sure you never saw the shotgun discharge, you never heard the shotgun discharge.
Not to my recollection.
Thank you, sir.
Examination by counsel for Lieutenant Wayne Greenlaw.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Madison. right, Mr. Madison. You were attending a party, a Halloween party, I believe, over at your friend's house?
Yes.
And what time did your party start that night, if you know?
8, 9 o'clock.
And were you guys consuming any alcohol or any kind that night?
Yes.
And how much alcohol did you have to drink that night?
A lot.
Now, I believe that it's after 5:30 when all of these events take place. Between the time you arrived at your friend's house and the time that all this took place, any idea how much alcohol you might have consumed that evening?
15 or 20 years.
So you guys were just having a good time, everybody enjoying each other's company, and something got your attention that evening. What was it that got your attention?
Heard arguing down the street.
And in that regard, man, first, let me show you a photograph that previously been marked as Exhibit 3. Do you recognize that as being the house that you were at that evening?
Yes.
And do you also recognize the fence around the house?
Yes.
Now, and this particular view is from up the street looking back toward the house that you were at, right?
Yes.
And ultimately, that's the direction from which the noise you heard. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. So you are at your friend's house, and where are you sitting at the time that you hear the noise?
In the back screen of the patio.
All right, I'm going to show you what has previously been marked as defendant Exhibit 26. And does that look like the screen in patio that you were in?
Yes.
Can you do me a favor and circle that, please? So you are sitting in the screened-in patio, and are you alone or with other people?
One other person.
Okay. And what are the two of you doing back there?
Just sitting back there, drinking, talking.
Okay. And you heard some arguing up the street, I believe is what you said.
Yes.
All right, very good. Now, upon hearing the arguing up the street, what did you do?
I went over the fence and looked over it.
Now, I know from seeing you a number of times over the past, you're about 6 feet tall, aren't you?
Yes.
And the fence that surrounds that property that you ran is a typical privacy wooden fence, is it not?
Yes.
And it is also approximately 6 feet tall.
Yes.
So to look over the fence, did you have to get up onto the fence in some way, shape, form, or fashion to peek over it?
Yes.
And how did you do that?
There is a slot of wood across the bottom that I was standing on.
And by standing on that little slot of wood that runs across the bottom of the privacy fence, were you able to look over the fence and look down the street to the area that you thought the noise was coming from?
Yes.
All right. And when you did that, were you able to see anything?
At first, no.
And were you eventually able to see something?
I thought I seen people running.
And do you remember telling us that you saw a couple of people up the street?
You may have seen one, at least one.
first three lines, page 6. Read it to yourself. Now that you've had a chance to read it, I know this has been a long time ago. Does that refresh your recollection as to what you told us back on January the 31st of 2012?
Yes.
And what did you tell us?
I stood on the fence and seen a couple people standing there.
Okay. And you can put it back down there. And what were they doing?
I don't remember.
Well, open it back up to page 6. Go to lines 5 and 6. Read those, maybe actually 4, 5, and 6.
They were yelling, and then a few minutes later, 2 gunshots.
Now, this particular statement you gave to us back on January 31st of 2012. I realize it's been almost 3. Well, it has been 3. So it's been a while. But now having read that, does that refresh your recollection about what you saw and what you heard?
That is someone.
All right. And you went on further to elaborate in reference to how many people did you see that on line 17,
At least 2. It was dark.
and was it dark that night?
Yes.
So argument takes place. How long did the argument last? Go down to the bottom of the page. Line 25, read it to yourself. Now that you've had a chance to look at it, how long did you tell us it lasted?
About 5 minutes.
All right, very good. But eventually the argument stopped.
Yes.
And I believe you told us it stopped after 2 gunshots.
I believe so.
Okay, very good. So arguing, 2 gunshots, arguing stopped. What's the next thing that you saw?
I believe that's the time I walked out to the driveway and I seen the guy coming past me going to his house.
All right. And when he walked by you, where were you at this point?
Standing in the driveway.
I'll show you what's previously been marked as Exhibit 18. You recognize that as being the driveway you were standing in that evening?
Yes.
And if you could please, would you please, Ms. Fitzgerald across the street, put a check mark where she thought you were. Where do you believe you were?
Right. About the same. Right in that area.
All right, very good. And so you're standing in the driveway. Gentleman passes by you, goes into the house. Do you see him walk into his house or drive up to his house?
I don't remember seeing any cars.
Okay. And was your friend with you out there at that time?
No.
Okay, I know at one time there were 2 of you out there, right?
In the front yard?
Yes, sir. Don't think so?
I don't believe so.
Okay, that's all right. So, bottom line is, he walked into the house across the street, that's your recollection.
Yes.
You don't remember a truck pulling up at or about that time?
No.
How long would you say that, well, strike that, when he went by you, did he say anything to you?
Yes. He said they tried to chop my friend in half.
All right, now, was that when he was going into the house or when he was coming back out?
When he was going towards the house.
Did he say anything to you on the way back out?
call 911.
So he walks by you, I think I asked you if you would describe him as happy or unhappy. How would you describe him at that point?
Someone happy.
Goes into his house. How long do you think he was there?
A few minutes, maybe 2, 3, 4 minutes.
All right. So he's in his house 2 or 3 minutes and he comes back out. And does he walk right the same way that he walked down the street before? Does he walk right back the same way?
Yeah, about the same.
Now, when you looked over the fence earlier, see where all the noise and the arguing was coming from? Where did you see the two people that you saw? What you did, these photographs or the one that's up there? You're down here?
Yes.
You're looking over this fence?
Yes.
Back in this direction?
Yes.
And do you recall where it was that you saw the two people that you saw arguing?
No.
When he walked by you going the opposite direction from whence he had come, back from where he had come, was he headed back to the place where you originally saw the argument?
I'd assume so.
So your thought process at the time was arguing, gunshots, man leaves, gets his gun, goes back up the street, headed back up to the area where you previously heard the argument.
Yes.
Now, it was hard for you to tell exactly how far he went up the street, wasn't
Yes.
it? And the houses out there on that street, number one, it's nighttime. Do you recall what time it was you called 911 the first time? Called them twice, didn't you?
Maybe 5:30, I'm not exactly sure.
Let's kind of see if we can work ourselves into a little bit of a time frame, okay? You thought that you heard the arguing sometime around 5:30. Would that be fair?
Yeah.
And you told us that you believe the arguing lasted for approximately 5 minutes.
Yes.
And that would put us at 5:35.
Yes.
And then the gentleman walked from where the arguing was down to the house that he went into. That took maybe a minute or two,
Yeah.
maybe about 5:37. Came out of the house, you said he stayed in there 3, 4, 5 minutes max.
Yeah.
So would it be fair to say that he came out of the house sometime around 5:42?
Yes.
So at or about 5:42, you make a phone call to 911, do you not?
I don't know what time it was.
Okay. Roughly this time period that we just went through, whatever it was, right? And when you call 911, what do you tell them?
I don't remember.
Okay. All right, so you call 911 about 5:42 or so. Man walks by you back up the street. At some point in time, when he gets back, well, strike that. What's he carrying when he comes back up the street?
It looked like a shotgun or a rifle of some sort.
All right. Now, I've asked you this before, and I know what the answer will be, but you only saw a shotgun, did you not? You did not see a flashlight.
No, I did not see a flashlight.
All right. So this person walks back up the street, and at the time you had absolutely no idea that happened to be Aspen Street, did you?
Now I didn't know which street I was happened to be on.
Right, you were just visiting. And when he walked back up the street, did you ever lose sight of him?
I don't believe so.
So he walked up the street, and at some point in time, do you recall telling us that he stopped momentarily and it looked like he was talking to someone?
I believe that's when he stopped in the front yard.
Okay. Now, when he was stopped in what appeared to be, to you, to be talking to someone, did that appear to be right at the edge of the road out in front of a house?
Yeah, John over here.
Okay. And that was the point where you saw him, what you thought to be talking to someone?
Yes.
Very good. Now, shortly, while he's sitting there talking to that person, do you see him with his shotgun?
He walked by me with it.
Well, it's a really bad question. Did you see him point the gun?
In between the houses, I'm not positive about that.
And did it appear to you that he was pointing it at someone?
Maybe.
Did he bring the shotgun up to the position where he had it up to his shoulder in a position where someone would be pointing the gun?
While he was looking in between the houses, I don't think so.
Turn over to page 11, please. Starting with line 11 through 14. Read it to yourself. You had a chance to read it. And having now had a chance to read it, does that refresh your recollection about what you said? Did he say?
Just a way of clarification, I'm not sure that this section, looking at right now, corresponds to the question that was just asked.
He's at the deposition, under testimony. Testimony. He's got more than one document over here. Is he looking at the right document? Which is the deposition?
Yes.
Is that what you have?
I do, I just don't think that Mr. Lawrence asked the question that gave this answer to the deposition.
Mr. Lawrence, is that what you, are those the line you wanted to look at? Do you think they're responsive to your question?
You give me just a second. I think Mr. Will has a good point. Let me rephrase the question. Let's go back up. That he gets back up to the street, and at some point in time, you see somebody else walk out into the street, right? Somebody, a neighbor or somebody, that's who you described?
No, the only person I seen come from the side of the house was the one, the other one.
Say that again?
The guy that came from the other side of the house, the one that had walked out to the front yard.
All right, that's what I'm saying. There was somebody else that walked out that wasn't the guy that walked past you.
Yes.
Okay. And at that point in time, the neighbor has come out and had the person who walked by you started pointing his gun, or was he pointing his gun? And that gets back to the paragraph that I just got through asking you about.
Okay. Yeah, he was pointing in between the houses, I believe. And then when he turned, when the other guy come out, when he turned towards him, my statement says that he was pointing the gun at him.
Yes. As a matter of fact, it says that he brought the gun up to his shoulder, held it in a position where he was pointing it. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, very good. And the next question was, who pointed the gun first? Over on the next page. And before you answer the question, can you remember the answer to the question?
No, it's not my head.
All right, if you go over to page 12, lines 1 through 5. And when I asked you who pointed the gun first, what did you indicate?
The guy that walked past him.
All right, very good. Now,
Judge, again, I'd ask that the witness be allowed to give the entire answer as stated in the position.
I wasn't stopping him from giving any answer.
I'll let you address the full context when you re-examine.
Thanks.
All right, the other guy that walked out, could you see if he had a gun?
At first, no.
But eventually you were able to, weren't you?
Yes.
And the end result is that the gentleman who walked by you was standing out at the edge of the road, pointing a gun back up the street, and the other guy that you saw walk out was pointing a gun back at the guy you saw walk up the street. They were pointing at each other.
I believe so.
Now, when the gentleman that walked past you went up the street, as he goes into this house, and you're standing over here by this time, right? You moved from the driveway over to this area near the basketball goal, right? And as he walks up the street in this general direction, would you agree with me that his back is turned to you?
Yes.
And when it gets to the point that he is in fact going to point his gun, and the other gentleman is pointing his gun, is the guy that walked past you pointing his gun this way, and the other guy that's over here pointing his gun back this way?
Yes.
All right. So when they were in the final position to square off, the gentleman that walked past you, his back was to you as he was pointing the gun like this, and the other person in fact was facing you.
Yes.
And you testified that you heard shots.
Yes.
And you saw shots. I think you indicated that in fact you saw the muzzle flash.
I believe so.
Could you have seen the muzzle flash of a gun that was pointed away from you when the gentleman's back?
I don't know.
What you did see was the flash of the weapon that was pointed in the direction back toward you.
Yes.
What you did not see was the flash of the weapon pointed away from
No.
you. Did it appear to you that anybody was out there ducking?
I couldn't see back up into the houses, so I didn't see anybody else.
They were just out at the edge of the road, pointing a gun at each other and firing.
I didn't see anybody that them too.
Now, you didn't know anybody involved in this case,
No.
so you have no reason or bias on your testimony in favor of one person or the other, do you?
No.
So you are telling us what it is that you believe you saw that evening,
Yes.
actually in the early morning hours.
Yes.
Now, I know you told us that you had drank a bunch of beers. Do you think that the beers that you drank had any impact on what you saw?
There's a possibility, yes.
Is drinking 15 beers something you do routinely, or is this something, a special occasion sort of thing?
Unfortunately, routine.
All right. I think, Judge, that's all the questions I have. I'm going to retrieve the exhibits.
Counsel for defendant for a Greenlaw examination.
Questions?
Right, sir, you indicated that, I think you got to this party about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night, correct?
Yes.
And that this incident that you became involved in or witnessed occurred about, started about 5:30 in the morning. Did you sleep any between the 8 and 9 o'clock when you got to the party? Now, you indicated that, and I think we'll identify the person as Brian, because that's how Mr. Will identified him. Brian was the guy that went and got what looked like the shotgun, or you say was a shotgun, right?
Yes.
And started heading up the street.
Yes.
And then you say that another person came out between two houses, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And Brian was pointing the shotgun in the direction of that person who came out between the two houses, correct?
I believe so.
Now, there was a question about that people were pointing guns at each other. Brian had a shotgun, correct?
Yes.
And the other person, I think you said, eventually you saw the second person with a gun.
Yes.
Was that person holding the gun like you would hold a rifle, or was he holding the gun like you would hold a handgun?
I believe a rifle.
I believe like a rifle? I don't have anything. Thank you.
Re-examination, Mr. Will.
Mr. Lawrence made a point a moment ago that you don't have any bias in this case, right?
No.
You don't know any.
No.
And so when you testified a little while ago that you never heard a shotgun blast, that we can be fairly certain that you're not covering for anybody.
No.
And when you testified a little while ago that you never saw a shotgun discharge, again, we can be certain that you're not covering for anybody.
Yes.
Now, when you indicated where Mr. Leverett was, the guy that walked past you, you indicated that he was near the driveway there, that red driveway. But when Mr. Lawrence came up a minute ago, he talked about standing there and pointing the gun this way down the street. Was he near the red driveway there? Or was he over here? Because you had previously stated there.
It was somewhere in that general area.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with the streets or the houses around that place.
Okay. And then, but your best guess is that he was out there in front of number 13 by that red driveway?
Yes, something.
And when I objected a minute ago about about where he was pointing his gun first, would you turn, do you have your deposition still up there? Okay.
When you said that he was pointing his gun first, I'm going to show you the same thing for just for line 12, or excuse me, page 12, line 4 and 5. Go ahead and read what he was pointing at. Read that out loud.
The guy that walked past me was pointing straight at the house. At what house? The house that the argument took place.
Okay, so the guy that walked past you was pointing his gun at that house, is what you're saying?
Yeah, like in between it.
Okay. And you said that the neighbor walked out on, either on the eastern side of the house or one house over
Yeah.
next to 13, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Just for reference, when you say that Mr. Leverett was pointing at the house, you were talking about when he was still over here, right?
Yeah, in that general area.
Okay, and that's on the western side of number 13?
I believe so.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Anything further from either counsel or defendant?
No.
What are counsel's position regarding releasing Mr. Madison and his subpoena?
Stay silent, please.
It's fine on behalf of Greenlaw.
Mr. Madison, you are released from your subpoena. You will not be called back to testify on person under this trial, but you do remain under the instructions of the on Friday afternoon and further discussing the testimony which will be required by the attorney's office in this case. Subject to that instruction, you are free to go.
Judge, you're in front of that same one.
You may. All right, ladies and gentlemen, the state's next witness is scheduled to arrive at 3 o'clock. He's not here just yet. Probably 15 to 20 minutes early for our afternoon break. We're going to go ahead and take it now in order to accommodate the witnesses' schedule for coming in. So we will be on recess until 3:20. Before we recess, I just want to put one thing on the record. I don't know what we can do to change it at this point. I don't think it's prejudicial to the state. I was incorrect in my ruling in not allowing you to introduce the exhibit. The reason is I was thinking in old school form, it wasn't proper because it had not been addressed on cross-examination. This was a joint witness, and because of that, I should have allowed it. That was the reason I denied it. Just clarify that for the record. I don't think there's any prejudice, since you'll have other witnesses that will be able to lay the appropriate foundation to get back to exhibit. But that's the reason I made the ruling. I was thinking direct, cross, and on redirect.
Okay, yeah.
Just wanted you to understand that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Subject to recess, 3:20.